to meet you. So join the animatronic family. We open real soon. Try your best to hold on to sanity. Come get to know me, and you won't want to leave after tonight. Down here we're lonely, and we would love you to join us for a ride.
Hey, welcome back for another spooky week with we're on chapter 4 of it's called Five Cherry Blossom Nights with the Sakura goes to the Five Nights at Freddie. We only got like 4 more chapters, and yeah, let's get into it. Alright, chapter 4. Night 4. Raising Stakes. Sakura cursed under her breath as she hurried into the security office and set her box of rice balls down as well as of water. She looked at the clock disc and gave a sigh of relief. Then let another curse. Let out another curse. Another choice curse, whatever. That stupid bear had nearly made her. Had nearly got her. She had gotten. Man, what the fuck is going on with these sentences? That stupid bear had nearly made her. She had gotten back to the apartment. She. What? I'm confused. My brain. Alright. She hadn't been able to get to sleep, and then when she finally did, it was a fitful sleep. That's still, basically, she didn't get that much sleep. It was a fitful sleep that still had her sleeping, and on top of all that, her thoughts had constantly circled around the bear and its ninja-like stealth. She went over several scenarios and backup plans, just trying to come up with something that could neutralize the damn thing. She was sure she had a few things, but in the process of coming up with them, she had nearly been late to get to work. Nearly. Not that it really mattered to her. It was a shitty job that was paying a whole lot less than it should. No, the reason she was upset because she really didn't want to get caught out in the halls in the dark again. Man, I don't see why she just didn't piss. Piss like in like a bucket or some shit. Man. Yeah, you ain't gotta go to the whole bathroom, man, to get out in the halls in the dark again. Once had been enough, thank you. Good God, her nerves were already frayed. She just needed to calm down, take a few breaths. She had several minutes before. She nearly jumped out of her chair and onto the floor when the phone went off. Hello? Hey, wow, it's day 4. I knew you could do it. Well, thanks. Hey, listen. I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. What was he talking about? And what was that noise? It sounded like banging. It's been a bad night here for me. I'm kind of glad that I recorded my message for you, when I did. Wait, no, you can't be serious. Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime, you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there, you know? Oh no. Near the end of that jingle, that song, that the bear played could be heard. There, then an earth, then a screech, then static, then the phone turned off. During it all, the entire time, as she listened to a man's final moment. Damn, the dude died. That's crazy. And those motherfuckers still were like, yeah, we'll play the recording. You know. For his last request, she sat there in numb silence. Oh, this dumb bitch is gonna fucking go out and try to check the suits and see if the man's there. Her mind couldn't process the information the white, for several seconds. And when it finally did, the panic set in. They had gotten him, a man that had known their tricks and survived them for far longer than she had. They had gotten him. They had persisted. They had learned. They had won. What could she do? What could she honestly do against all of them? That the guy on the phone couldn't. Every step she took was countered. She was doomed. Doomed! She slapped herself hard, then took a calming breath. No, she couldn't panic. She had to calm down. She had contingencies. She had plans. They couldn't counter everything. She had to calm down and check the cameras. With another curse, she picked up the handheld screen and quickly checked on Power Cove, only to have the fox peering from behind the curtains already. Next was backstage, which had only Freddie staring right back at her, as if telling her she was next. They had already taken care of one night guard. They would now take care of number two. No, she wouldn't let them. She glared at the bear, then set down the screen. Her ears, already supercharged, she could hear movement down the hall, but it didn't get closer. She calmed down. She calmed down further. She took a rice ball into her hand and stared at it. With a thought, she made it float above her palm with chakra alone. Then, with another thought, she got it to start spinning like one would a leaf in the academy. If she could do something like this, she could do anything. Anyway, she just had to calm down and stay calm. She was feeling better by 2 o'clock. Everything had settled into the same groove as the last few nights. She didn't check the bedroom for when the bear left. She didn't feel she had to. If he came, she would hear him. She was certain of that. As it was the fox was standing in the shadows, and Bunny and Chicken had taken their chances a few times now. But it was all right. Her ears had done the trick. They would continue to do so. Of this, she was certain. Then she heard it, the softest of whispers, quiet footfalls that betrayed nothing. The bear was coming, and as she heard him, she smiled as she turned her light on. Turned to her right. He couldn't sneak up on her. She had him. He would be locked out like the others. Then the sound ceased. Some distance down the hall, she was sure. What was he going to do? Suddenly that stupid jingle started to play. She winced as the sound assaulted her ears. Why would he do that? He had great stealth going for him. Why would he ruin that with such needless music? She shook her head as she stared at the door for half a minute, then shrugged and turned back to her desk. At least it would be easier to hear him coming. She did a quick check on the pirate, then she frowned. Okay, he really needs to turn that down. It's so loud I can't hear myself. Oh no! Oh god. A dreadful realization hit her. Hoping she was wrong, she quickly turned to her right and hit the light button. Instead of the chicken who stood in the doorway, she slammed the door shut. She turned left and checked the door light. The bunny stared down at her. She slammed that door too. Oh lord. She leaned back into her chair, doing her best not to hyperventilate. Her hearing, her biggest advantage, had been neutralized. I lost my place. Oh, there we go. She had no contingencies for this. She took the chakra out of her ears. It was useless now. Now it all made sense why he stayed back, why the bear stayed on stage. He was like Kakashi had been for Team 7. He was the Jonin, while the others were his Genin or Chunin team. They went out and attempted to get her while he watched, learned her habits, and then made moves to take advantage of those habits. She wasn't facing off against old animatronics. She was against an experienced team that knew exactly how to coordinate their assaults. She felt panic rise up again. She was going to have to rely on her old methods again, use the cameras to try and predict their movements. It was an inefficient method, but it looked to be all that she had. A loud bang to her left threw her out of her panicked thoughts. The fox had made her move. Oh God, how long has she had both doors down? She quickly checked the lights and then opened the doors. Another quick check of other lights, then a look at the pirate cove and her power. Oh no, 40%, no, 38, and it was 3. Crap! Was she going to make it? She did a quick camera sweep and located each of the animatronics. That jingle was still playing in the background. Could she make it through the night? Would 38% be enough? It was going to have to be. Sakura wiped sweat from her brow and reached for a rice ball on instinct, only to be reminded that she ran out some time ago. She didn't even swear this time. Just returned her attention to the screen in front of her. 10 minutes left. 3% power. She quickly scanned the cameras. They weren't near her. The fox was behind his curtains. 2% power. She set down the screen and only then realized that the music had stopped. She tentatively put chakra back in her ears. She heard nothing. She gulped and checked the cameras again. 1% power. Was that a noise? She put the screen down and turned to her right. Her ears picked something up. Or did they? Was her mind playing tricks on her? She checked the door's light. Then everything went dark. 0% power. Oh lord. Her eyes went wide. How much time was left? Where were the animatronics? Her mind whipped herself into a panic. All her plans, all her precautions had been for naught. In desperation, she did the only thing she could think of. She closed her eyes and went limp in her chair. What the fuck? She did her best to control her breathing so that her chest moved as little as possible. Oh, she's pretending to be dead. Okay. She pumped chakra into her ears to try and pinpoint any movement coming her way. She had to buy herself time. Precious minutes. Precious seconds. They always left her alone at 6 on the dot. She just hoped it would stay the same. She didn't know how long she stayed like that in the dark and the silence. However, eventually she heard it, the sound that made her blood turn to ice water. The gentle, soft whisper of falls. Slow, steady, and meaningful. They stopped at the door. A soft, gentle whirring told her that some part of it, perhaps the head, was moving. That stopped soon as well. Quiet. It all became quiet again. She struggled to keep her breathing even and small. The jingle started playing, and she nearly jumped and screamed. However, she kept it under control. It was perhaps testing her. Once the bear saw she wasn't moving, it might go away. Even if it went to get a metal skeleton, that would take time. Time she desperately needed. The song continued. Then the alarm went off. The music abruptly stopped. Seriously, what company decided that children cheering was a good alarm? Time for when the shift was over. She decided not to question that tonight. She opened her eyes. Then the alarm went off. The music abruptly stopped. Seriously, what? Oh, I was reading the same shit again. Alright. She opened her eyes. She listened hard. Her eyes quickly adjusted to the darkness. Nothing was there. She was safe. She made it. She let go of a breath she didn't know she was holding. She made it. By God, she made it. Well, she made it. By God, she made it through another night. Okay, that was chapter 4. It had some little grammar issues there, but it's whatever. Sakura, chapter 5, night 5, surprises. Sakura needed answers, answers that up until this point she had natively thought were unimportant. She needed to know more about those murders that people talk about, more about this place's past. She needed to know why this place closed so many times in the past. Most importantly, she needed to know what happened to the guy that had left all those phone messages. She needed to see for herself what happened to him, not to report it. After all, it didn't matter if she did or not, they would still wait. No, she was doing this for him, because he had wanted someone to find him. Alright, whatever. I would have just been like, fuck you, bro. I go look for your ass. I mean, I appreciate it, that you left me these messages, but like finding your body ain't gonna change nothing. But anyway, because he had wanted someone to find him. She even had an idea of where to check first. That is, if she was right in thinking. Oh wait, never mind. She could just do that in the daytime. So, you're right. You're right. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, I guess. She even had an idea of where to check first. That is, if she was right in thinking that these things had a cruel sense of humor, which she was very sure about, which was why she was sneaking into Pirate Cove and going behind the curtains and not screaming in terror when she comes face to face with the fox. Should have saw that coming. Really, really should have. It was still daytime hours, though, so it wasn't active, which was good, very good. Now just go around to the back of it. Now look for it. There we go. Open it up, and oh god, there really was a body in here. Oh god, and according to the look of the blood and what little was identifiable, the person in here has been dead for less than 24 hours. What do you mean? That wouldn't be the case. Oh, hmm. I don't know. I thought, because wouldn't he have done it through some of the recordings during his last week or whatever? I don't know. Anyway, this was him. This was the guy. She had been right. It was only because she had been training under Tsunade that she was able to close up the suit and get out of there. It was only because she had been Tsunade's apprentice for a year that she had been able to walk through the restaurant with a straight face. It had only been because she had been in thermedic? I don't know what that means. Alright. Program for 2 years that she had been able to walk into the bathroom, make it to a stall, close the door, lock it, and kneel in front of the toilet before she emptied her stomach of its contents. Uh, Whatever. It was several terrible minutes before she could even think of rising from her knees and flushing the toilet. Then it was to the sink to attempt to rinse as much of the taste of vomit from her mouth as possible. It had been a terrible sight. The body twisted and the head completely turned to paste. She could only hope it had been quick, otherwise she shuddered at the thought. She had to be more careful. That could have been her last night and could be her tonight. She leaned heavily onto the sink. She couldn't think she couldn't think she couldn't think like that. Alright, damn, I can't fucking read. Alright, that line of thought would lead her to a self-fulfilling prophecy ending in her death. She steadied herself and turned towards the door. She needed to get back out there. She had to learn as much of the truth as she could. Maybe it wouldn't help anything, but she just had to know. Someone had to. Sakura stumbled into the office and practically dropped her box of rice balls and bottle of water onto the desk before collapsing into the chair. She was emotionally exhausted, mentally tired and jumpy. She was in no shape to be here, but here she was, her mind still spinning from the grim truth that she had learned. Children. It all revolved around children. Dead children. Apparently in the first location, with the original animatronic, a man used a suit to kill 5 children and shove their bodies in the suit. What? I see, I don't know my Five Nights at Freddy's lore. I knew a little bit about the children's thing, but nothing about the details or whatever. Anyway, yeah, the first occasion, the original animatronics, a man used a suit to kill 5 children and shove their bodies in the suit. If that wasn't bad enough, the culprit, it was theorized to be the same person, struck again when the second generation of robots came out. They somehow killed more kids despite the obscurity. This was then followed by the infamous bite incident, the bite of '87. One of the animatronics, it was long forgotten which one, but bit a guard and severed their frontal lobe, which led to now. That didn't quite explain why they attacked guards, though, except there was a little nugget that she had been told. Near the end of the second gen's life, when they were all allowed to roam the halls in the daytime, he had started to give wary stares to the adults while still being happy around the children, and all the children had been killed at night. So, did they think? Oh, the phone rang. The phone actually rang, but that was impossible. The guy died. She had seen his mangled body. He couldn't have. No words came over the phone speakers, only garbled up nonsense. Oh, it's the animatronic. That only made it worse. The machines had not only gotten in, but had also set up a recording. Oh God, the cameras! She picked up the screen. Fox was peeking out, and they were all gone from the back room. Panic set in. As she started flipping through the camera, she found the bunny and the chicken when that damn melody started playing. She was so taken by surprise that she had dropped the screen into her lap and turned toward the door on her right. The bear was already prepared. She gulped down the lump in her throat and was about to turn back forward. When something caught her eye, she turned further to her right and screamed. She was standing before her was a slouched over yellowish colored bear. Oh, the golden Freddie! Its mouth hanging open and eyeless sockets staring deep into her soul. In desperation, she lifted the screen in front of her face, hoping to use it to fend off any assaults that never came. She slowly lowered the device, only to see an empty room in front of her. She let out a sigh of relief, only to stiffen as pure instinct had her check the door lights on her right. Then a panicked hand hit the door, sealing away the chicken from her person. A quick check on her left showed that it was clear. With a shaky hand, she reached for what was quickly becoming her comfort food, what had been that thing? The golden bear. How had it gotten in there? Why did it leave? What was going on? Great, just great. Just what she didn't need. Another piece of the giant puzzle, another thing to watch out for. She took a bite of her food and chewed slowly as she checked the door lights on both sides before letting the door on the right go up. She swallowed as she checked the screen again, but it didn't matter. She had to remain vigilant. She had to make it through this. They couldn't get her. She had far too much she had to do. She refused to die in a ramen palace meant for kids. It was 3 o'clock. Her nerves were frayed. Her rice balls and water were nearly gone, and she discovered that she really hated the cameras. They were not very efficient when it came to power use. Not only that, but they gave her a sense of powerlessness and hopelessness. She could see where her queries were, but couldn't stop them, couldn't predict them. It was hard to tell sometimes if the reason she couldn't find something was because she missed it in her mad dash to the screens to save power, or because that particular something was right outside the door. thinking of missing something. That strange bear hadn't showed again. There was no sign of it. In fact, there was no sign that it had truly ever existed. Had ever truly existed. It made no sense, not at all. However, her instinct told her not to worry about it. That same instinct that could have served her a whole lot better than the damn cameras. It was her instincts that had helped her turn on the lights and hit the door button at the right time. It was those same instincts that started screaming at her right now. She punched the light button with a practiced motion and shaky fingers, only for nothing to happen. She blanched? I don't know. What does that mean? Whatever. Or belched? I don't fucking know. Anyway, she pushed the button again. Nothing. She hit the button. Still nothing. No, no, no! Why wasn't the light working? Her panic started to rise. It didn't matter. Worry about that later. Close the door now. She slammed her palm into the door. She slammed her palm into the door button, only for it not to work as well. That was when her panic skyrocketed. No, no, no! She flew out of her chair and started back away from the open door. Her eyes started to make out a familiar silhouette of the chicken in the dark hallway. It had somehow sabotaged the door. She didn't know how, but it had. She whined as she took another step back and ran into something very solid back first. It took her terrified mind several seconds to realize that, judging by her position, she was standing in front of the left doorway, and the thing she was pressing against was neither wall nor door. Oh, God. She looked down in time to see a large purple arm wrap around her torso from behind. Oh, Lord. Sakura's dead. Alright, that was chapter 5. Chapter 6? Oh, it's epilogue. Game over. Oh, so Sakura died. That's crazy. On the 5th night, too. She was almost done. Let's see. Alright, chapter 6. Epilogue. Game over. Let me see. Oh, shit. I went back to the first chapter. Hold on, give me a second. Alright. Alright, there we go. I'm on chapter 6 now. Alright. Alright, chapter 6. Epilogue. Game over. Tsunade sighed for the umpteenth time while reading the reports from that nightmare of a C rank. It was highly depressing to read, not for the first time since she started, and the god, the Aime Hokage. The fuck does that mean, dog? Alright, anyway. Some Hokage wished she could have some sake. And by some, she meant several bottles. She could gulp down back to back. Oh yeah, not Sasuke. Tsunade does like her sake, I'll tell you what, man. Murdered children, hunted guards, killer animatronics, things, convoluted rumors, and stories. A company that didn't seem to care about anything so long as it stayed afloat. The last mission had been a mess. To make things worse, she hadn't just sent one of her ninjas to spend time in that hellhole. She had a girl she had started to get attached to there. A girl that hadn't wanted to go and had been pretty much forced to take the position. This information, hadn't really been worth it. Sakura, oh, she shook herself from such thoughts. She couldn't think of that now. Is this everything? Yes, it's all the information that could be gathered at this time, her assistant stated. She was being very professional about it, hiding how she felt most likely. Tsunade really hated this part of ninja life. You would think with this being major knowledge that the place would be shut down for good and the things melted into scrap. You know, you think that, you think that. She growled. It really isn't their fault. They are just doing their job, though I do admit the company should be shut down for their negligence. What? You would defend them even after... Yes, I would, because someone has to. Her student said, cutting her off. She sighed and gave a sad little smile. Teacher, I understand how you feel. I really do. However, you need to understand that some things are out of our control. Please read the last page of the report in its entirety. It will explain everything. So who submitted the report? No. Alright. She continued in a calming tone. The slug summoner swallowed her anger. Once again, she wished she could have many drinks of such needed sake. However, her anger and eyes softened as she looked over the form of her second student. Oh, God. before flipping to the final page of the report. She took a deep breath and said, "Very well, Sakura," before starting to read. Sakura didn't scream. It was probably more appropriate to say that she couldn't. Her mind was too numbed by the horror of what was happening. She also didn't struggle for this. Okay, so I think it switched back to the thing, to the Sakura store when it wrapped around her or whatever. Of what was happening. She also didn't struggle for the same reason. Not that she probably couldn't if she had been in the right state of mind to. The oversized rabbit was holding her in what could be considered a bridal carry. Its large arm wrapped around her firmly, keeping her arms and legs in place securely. Her mind wasn't on that, however. Instead, it was revolved around a single thought. This was how it all was going to end. Stuffed into a suit, head turned to paste, body forced to twist and bend in unnatural ways, left to rot with only the fact that she hasn't sent a letter or returned on time being clues that something happened to her. But with only the fact that she hasn't sent a letter or returned on time. Whatever. To submit the thing. Alright, all that training to be a medic would go to waste. She wouldn't be able to see her friends, wouldn't be able to continue her friendly rivalry with Ino. Oh god. I continued to learn under Tsunade. She would never get to greet Naruto after his training trip. Oh yeah. Oh, that was a kind of an interesting. Oh, that was a fresh moment. Oh god. When he got back from Shippuden, it was like, did the hero's comeback opening? Oh god, that was hype, man. Anyway, left to right with only the fact that she hadn't seen blah 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 blah. As she was training to or help him bring back Sasuke. Oh, everything that she was going to do within here. She was going to die. She was going to be put into a chair in the dining area and have a steaming bowl of ramen placed before her. Oh yeah! She ain't an adult. She's a kid. So the animatronics are gonna treat her differently. Oh, okay. I see. She stared at the bowl of food owlishly as her brain attempted to reboot. This couldn't be right. This had to be some kind of trick. Her mind giving her something nice to think about before the final moments. Or maybe the ramen was poisoned so that she didn't squirm when they shoved her into her animal-shaped tomb. Or maybe. Congrats, little lady, for winning 4 nights in a row. It was a great game. The voice of her host and greatest foe. What? The voice of her host and greatest foe rang throughout the room, dragging her out of her thoughts. This was an interesting phrasing. The fact that he wasn't supposed to talk barely registered. She turned her head towards the stage. There was the bear, the bunny, and the chicken in their usual their usual spots. Instruments at hand. Well, the bear had a mic, but that pretty much was his instrument. Little lady, she heard the little lady. She heard the bear say that a few times during the day. He always called his audience small gents and little ladies. Of course, that was because his audience was mostly kids. Wait, to celebrate your achievement, the band and me want to play you some songs while you eat a well-deserved meal. However, before that, there's someone who has been very eager to see you. The bear announced, "Celebrate," but she was supposed to die when caught. He mentioned a game, but the loud clanking sounds of heavy metal feet running echoed through the room. She quickly turned to see the large fox dashing toward her. She wanted to scream. However, her horror quickly turned to confusion when the huge fox-like robot came to a sudden halt and took up what was probably supposed to be a very dashing pose. Once again, her brain attempted to reboot as it tried to digest the situation. What was going on? Oh wait, the fox used to run out into the dining area in order to entertain the children. It clicked into place. Her hands started to work on automatic and started to clap. Despite the hanging jaw, she was sure the fox would smile if it could. A sentiment that was reinforced as its tail started to move from side to side. "Yar, so we finally be me at last," it said with a dramatic bow that brought a small, gentle smile to Sakura's lips despite herself. "Ye be right quick with that door locked. No doubt worried about leaving yourself open to the greatest sea fox to ever sail the seas." It continued standing up straight, gesturing grandly with its hooked hand. "I not be surprised that me reputation precedes me. So as a reward for your quick wits, I shall spin ye on one of my greatest tales while the land-loving band warms up. Is that all right with you, Captain? Go right ahead, we will back you up, the bear answered. If you haven't gotten rusty, the bunny quipped. Arr, I'll show ye, Rusty. Just play your string. Sakura couldn't help but laugh a little. This sealed it. It was like one of the day shows, only with the whole gang, though she was sure the lines weren't anything like what was programmed in them. Then again, with everything else they could do, who said they couldn't reword phrases and use word banks? Like new sentences. And she now knew why. They were treating her like a child. They saw her as a child. Yeah, that's fresh, that's fresh. Now, normally she would be very upset at this. She was a ninja, and she was of the opinion that she was maturing into quite a beautiful woman. However, at this point, she wasn't about to complain. If her theory that they were killing guards to protect children was right, they wouldn't purposely harm her for as long as they saw her as a child. Following that logic, she listened as the pirate spun a yarn around one of his fictional adventures, as the others played appropriate music effects in the background. She couldn't help but laugh or widen her eyes in amazement as she ate her bowl of ramen. It was amazing to her how cohesive the group was. They showed a bit of coordination while trying to get her, but the way they played off each other and how on occasion one of the three on stage, primarily Bunny, would interrupt with some witty remark which just helped build up the story or play up the amusement factor of it all. It was less like seeing a group of puppets running around through a program routine and more like a group of friends just having fun. When the tale was finished, the band started up its portion of her little party. By then, the ramen was done and she was simply enjoying the surrealness of it all. It was all just so unreal. It made no sense, and yet it was what was happening. So she decided if this was how it was going to be, she might as well push the envelope. She made eye contact with the foxy pirate, who was staying in dumbs to the beat of the music. Then she put her arm on the table, elbow pressed into the wooden surface, and arm up, bent a 45-degree angle. She wasn't sure if he would recognize the significance, but was rewarded for her leap of faith. So ye wish to challenge me, lass? Very well, a challenge it is. If she didn't know any better, she would have sworn there was a tone of genuine amusement in its voice. But there couldn't be. She wouldn't go that far. It made its way to the spot opposite of her and moved aside the chairs that were by no means meant to support its weight and set its arm in a position that mimicked hers. Its hand was a bit bigger than hers as they clasped tightly and stared at each other. For some reason, staring into that one eye didn't creep her out near as much as she thought it would. As some unheard signal, they started. She couldn't hear it, but she was sure the gizmos in his arm were wearing up. She put all the strength she could muster in her arm, all the knowledge she had in Sudani's super strength technique. The arm barely moved. It made her frown. Sure, she didn't have the technique all the way down yet, but it should be more than enough. And then the arm she was wrestling started to actually apply pressure. It started small, a shaking in her arm as she struggled to keep what little progress she made. However, it kept coming, and she slowly lost ground. It wasn't a quick, humiliating defeat. Uh, she had been able to stop her slow progression downward a couple of times before even more pressure was added. But in the end, she had her hand brought down to the wooden surface with a solid thump. Arr! That be a good try, lass. Ye be strong, but I be stronger, the sea fox said with a flex of his arm. Sakura couldn't help but smile despite the fact she was lost so easily. Thank you, she said, and the fox nodded. Straightening up, she looked back to the stage with the band giving it their all. It was a rather childish song, however, it was full of energy. It was one of the best things she had ever heard. She looked at her arm. It was a dull ache from the exertion, but it felt almost heavenly. The struggle, the effort, the empty bowl that had been held the best tasting that held the best tasting bowl of ramen she had ever had in her life. Oh Lord, wait, no, Ichiraku, man, you can't do Ichiraku like that, right? Impossible. This was likely to be the best night of her life for a very, very long time, for one very simple reason: she was still alive. However, all good things come to an end. All things come to an end. The song says to stop. The pirate had to return to his cove with more dramatic posturing and many witty remarks. The band had to return backstage, and she had to go back to the office. However, before she left the dining room area, she bowed to them, a polite thankful bow, to the thing that had showed her both mercy and a great time, and has instilled within her a new sense of life and desire to grow even more. Tsunade looked up from the report. Seriously? You were only alive because they thought you were a child? That sounded far too good to be true. I know it sounds odd, but it's the only explanation that fits all the facts. It's also why I shouldn't go back to that post, at least not too many more times. I don't know how old is too old. I could appear too old in a month or two because my body grew more to match my age. Who said anything about anyone going back there? I'm going to move to have that place shut down, Tsunade declared. She was full of righteous rage. This kind of place, it shouldn't be around. Teacher, I know how you feel, but it won't do anything. Think about it. Man, shut the fuck up, Sakura, man. That place should get shut up. Anyway, Sakura said in the comment town, the only word we have is my own. That the animatronics are killing people. Who's going to believe that? Oh, yeah, you got a point, though. Sakura, you got a point, though. Besides, the customers as a whole, but you got the bodies, though. Just be like, hey, yo, there's a dead body in your room. And they're like, chill, shut that hole down. Anyway. Besides, the customers as a whole already know that murders happen to that place or around it, and it's still popular with kids and adults alike. All you trying to shut it down would do is make it so that they will turn to a different village for help or go back to hiring average Joes and Janes from the street, which will cost people their lives. Tsunade grumbled to herself, burying her head in her hands. She really didn't like it, but what her apprentice was saying made some sense. Damn it, then what do? We keep sending ninja, the more skilled Genin, and younger looking Chunin. They need to look like a child or young teen. As long as they look young enough, they will treat it as a game and reward whoever we send if they do well enough. We can even give the people we send a more thorough briefing, telling the danger in most of the habits, without telling them that it is safe in the end. Then we can turn it into a test and training of sorts. Tsunade stared at Sakura in shock. What she had just suggested. Why would you advocate this? Teacher, only two people have a chance of surviving that place. A very skilled adult that can either outsmart the machines or keep up a transformation for days at a time. With no one, not even the machine seeing them as an adult, or a younger ninja who will suffer far less penalties if caught. She gotta make it. She gotta speak in facts though. But shouldn't we at least let them know that there is a safety net? It wouldn't be much of a test or training if they knew there was no consequences, right? Besides, there was another reason. When I had been caught, I had thought with my whole being I was about to meet my end. Sucker gave a small smile that baffled the female Sani. However, when they instead threw me a party, my whole world brightened. I had a second chance. I could get better. I could improve. I could live. That is why I want to do it. That is why I want them to do it without knowledge of the safety net. That moment when you feel you are about to be swallowed up by death, it's a real eye opener. It will be good for the troublemakers and the skilled prodigies, both to experience that feeling in an environment that will ensure that they live. Tsunade was taken back by the passion in the Pinkette's voice. Sakura, you're sounding like a You're sounding fantastic. You sure you are okay? Yeah, some of those freaking grammars. It is a fan made thing, though. So I can't really. It is pretty good overall. But I can't really. I'm not gonna judge too much. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. It's just I feel so relieved and grateful and a little sorry for those things. Despite being so loved during the day, it feels almost like they have to hide how they really are. I know it sounds crazy, but it's truly how it feels. Oh, teacher, how I wish you could see it and understand. Tsunade's narrowed her eyes. My Tsunade would fuck all them, all them animatronics should be like the fist, bro. Oh, teacher, how I wish you could see it and understand. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and thought as she stared into space a bit. Very well, I will think about it. I promise nothing, however. Sakura bowed, obviously noticing the dismissal. I understand, thank you. I will leave to the hospital. I will head to the hospital to see if Shizune needs any help. The blonde waved her off and waited for the younger girl to leave before she reached into her drawer and pulled out a bottle of sake and a cup. From what she read in the report and heard from Sakura, it seemed she would have to see it to believe it. She poured a saucer of the potent liquor and drowned it in a single smooth motion. If that was so, then it was a good thing her age transformation didn't bother her at all, no matter how long it was on, because it looked like she was going to spend 5 nights at Freddie's. Oh, damn! Tsunadi's gonna do it now? Yo, that's kind of fresh. Alright, that was chapter 6 or 7. Let me see how chapter 7. How long chapter? Man, that's a long chapter, man. I don't know if I do. I don't know if I just want to move it to next time. Whatever. Alright, chapter 7, extra drinking with Freddie. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. It wasn't nearly as comfortable as the one in the Hokage Tower, but it was comfortable enough, though the mess all around her upset. Though the mess all around her upset her sense of OCD that was instilled in all medics. There was just so much clutter. She groaned in annoyance as she crossed her arms over her flat chest. She would just have to get over it. It was just for a few days, just long enough to see what it was that Sakura talked about. Just 5 days. She left the little screen on the desk in front of her. As impressive as it was, she wouldn't need it. Unlike Sakura, she was forewarned and thus for, forearmed. She double-checked her surroundings as she went down her mental checklist and threat assessment. Each animatronic had a set of habits and routines they followed. The bunny and chicken were the most active and would be her only threats tonight. Bunny came from the left and tended to go into the supply closet. Chicken came from the right and liked to visit the kitchen. Bunny approached the most, but the chicken would stay around for longer. Oh, I had the fart. I don't know if that picked up on the mic, though. The fox wouldn't be a problem until tomorrow, and like to bum rush the guard room. You had to keep an eye on him in order to keep him at bay. It wouldn't be hard to incorporate that into a routine. However, it was a non-issue at the moment. The bear would also not be an issue, at least for the first few days. But even then, he should be easy enough to handle. He was the strategist of the group, capable of incredible stealth and coming up with methods to neutralize the advantages of his opponents. She would have to work around whatever he came up with. She wasn't worried. As the clock struck midnight, her mind turned her over to her supplies. The company refused to allow outside food. Of all their policies, this one was actually understandable, though they couldn't do much to enforce it, at least not with ninjas when sealing arrays were involved. Though that didn't mean she shouldn't play along. It wasn't like their food was bad. It was really good. However, most of their food was salty. The extra salt combined with the stuffy, hot atmosphere of the room meant she would be consuming more water. This in turn would lead to a higher frequency of bathroom trips, something you didn't want when you were deep in enemy territory. On top of that was the fact that everything in the room ran off the same finite source of power. Closing the doors took power. Using the lights or the screen did the same. If she overused her power, the generator powering everything was shut down. To make things worse, the bear apparently thrived in the dark. Losing power was not an option, even if playing dead was apparently a viable tactic. She doubted it would buy her that much time. She smiled to herself. She wasn't worried. She was one of the Sanin, one of the greatest ninjas of her generation. She had years of experience in both hospitals and behind enemy lines. Not to mention from being on the run from collectors, she knew how to stretch out supplies and control her body's needs and impulses. Moderation would be the name of the game, and despite what Shizune said about her drinking habit, she was good at moderation. From her relaxed position in her chair, she had clear sightlines of both doors without needing to turn from one or the other. The buttons to both doors and lights were well within reach. She started to channel chakra into her ears and eyes. Unlike her apprentice, who increased the general effectiveness of her ears, Tsunade had a more complete knowledge of the body. So instead of just increasing the general volume everything was, she increased her ear sensitivity to blunt sounds, such as footfalls. I want to say footsteps. Footfall, I don't like that. Footsteps. She also increased her eyes' ability to distinguish shapes in the darkness by improving her peripherals. She leaned forward and opened up her box of rice balls and making sure one of her bottles of water was close by it. As she settled back into a relaxed position, her smile broadened. If they were going to treat it like a game, as long as she stayed in this childish shape, then so be it. Game on. Tsunade lazily glanced at the time as she slowly made her way through a rice bowl. This was a fairly boring job. 3 hours in and not much had happened. Oh, sure, the bunny and chicken had come to visit a couple times, but they weren't threats. Not really. With the treat finished, she took a couple of sips of water, though she would have preferred it if she had a bottle of nice sake instead. Oh well. She was undercover, and children don't drink alcohol, no matter how delicious it was. I mean, the animatronics don't know, though, I'm sure. She heard soft let's I'll say footfalls, whatever. Footfalls, and without turning her head, she pointed at the door just as the shadowy silhouette of the chicken came into view. Without focusing all her attention on that one spot, she met the metal puppet's gaze, making sure her fingers stayed on target the entire time. It had been a gamble the first time she had done it earlier tonight. Uh, However, unlike her times in the casinos, the gamble paid off. The animatronics didn't seem to make a move as long as you let them know you were aware of them. And if you waited long enough, the shadowy figure in the doorway turned and walked away. Tsunade smirked to herself. Easy, perhaps too easy. After all, she was probably overkill for this kind of assignment, though she could see where this could be a good test for less experienced ninjas. Maybe holding a few things back would be a good idea when it came to a briefing about this place. That is, if she didn't just burn the place down herself. The safety regulations here were atrocious. She was brought out of her thoughts by a sound she had not expected, loud, heavy, and rapid footsteps. Even as surprise descended upon her, her analytical mind quickly went over everything she knew and gave her a conclusion. The fox was coming out to play early, to quote one for the tuning. This was going to be troublesome. She was under no illusion that the fuzzy-tailed troublemaker would follow the same rules as the other three, so she reached out and hit the door button for the first time that night. The thick metal door slammed home with a loud thud. A second thud, a loud followed seconds later, as something going quite fast hit something very solid. Then everything went silent again, presumably while the thing on the other side of the door got its bearing back. Soon enough, though, there was the sound of something making a rather hasty retreat. Tsunade raised the door back up when it was clear the fox was running. The running fox was actually leaving. She leaned back with a sigh of annoyance. That was not supposed to happen at all, according to what Sakura said. He was supposed to be active starting tomorrow, so something had changed. But what could that be? Something be? She mentally went back over the reports as she scrubbed one of the wise balls. If she remembered right, Sakura didn't try. Sakura hadn't tried to go screenless until night 2, which meant she was checking all the cameras in the first night, since she wouldn't have known which rooms were and were not paid important. She would have checked in on Pirate Cove as well, something you were supposed to do in order to keep the fox at bay. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. The more you check the camera, the less he comes, I guess. It was the best theory she had. After all, please ignore the screen. She gave Foxy no opening. Okay, it was the best theory she had. After all, even when she decided to stop using the screen, Sakura had still checked on the fox via its camera. She leaned forward and picked up the screen to quick check her power and smiled. Even with that little slip, she had plenty. In fact, if she wanted, she could probably lower the left side door and make that entire half of the restaurant move. However, doing that wouldn't help much in the long run. She had to get into the habit of saving power, always having a reserve. To just take the easy way now would set a bad precedent for the remainder of her stay. That being said, she wasn't going to use the screen tonight. There wasn't that much time left in her shift, and she did have a good. Uh, she did have a good reserve going. She could afford to put down the door a couple more times, though in the future, using a small amount of power for the screen to prevent a major loss by having to use the doors often would be worth it. It just didn't matter much tonight. It probably wouldn't even matter tomorrow. But if the fox got more active along with the rest of them, she wasn't sure if her power reserves would be able to keep up with it, even if she just used power for that one door. She nodded to herself as her left hand shot out to point out at the bunny, who chose that moment to appear. That was one problem solved. On to the next one. The next night wasn't much more. All right, the next night wasn't much more exciting. She hadn't expected it to be, though she did get a clue as to why her pointing trick worked. It had happened an hour or so into her shift. She was pointing to the chicken when she reached for the screen pad to get a peek at the fox. If a subtle, if I have to kind of try to make sense of this sentence. If it was a subtle thing, and if she was any less experienced or observant, she would have missed it. When her hand took hold of the screen, the chicken tensed slightly, much like an animal ready to pounce. She then let go of the screen, and it untensed. She repeated this a couple of times until the chicken eventually left. So she just has to pick up the screen? It was a small thing, but illuminating at the same time. Despite their size and potential strength, these things preferred stealth, but even so, the office had a good view of both doors, making stealth useless. However, if there was a distraction of sorts, then it would be easy enough to grab someone, and the screens were major distractions. That meant being extra careful. It didn't matter if she was pointing and letting them know she was paying attention. If she took her eyes off of them, they would take advantage of it. She wouldn't let them have that. The following nights weren't very memorable. Oh, sure, the bear had made his appearance, and several of his strategies had been rather good. In fact, she was sure that if she had been as inexperienced as she looked, a few of them might have actually worked. However, they hadn't. So she sat here on the fifth day as the clock hit 4 in the morning. The job was more interesting than paperwork. Even if it was a bit repetitive, she found herself as she leaned back in her chair. Things had been quiet to that point for the last hour or so. There had been no movement towards her or in the hall. No music, no quiet steps, nothing. Hell, the fox's curtain had remained closed for the past hour as well. It was odd. It was a change in the routine. Changes weren't always signs of good things. How now, granted, it could mean that they gave up. However, it could also be a new tactic to get her let her let down her guard. Only time would. Music started to play, but it wasn't the same music box stuff that the bear would play. This sounded like the instruments the animatronics would play in the daytime. It wasn't a real melody, more like a warm-up than anything else. Why? Were they actually? Sonati picked up the much-neglected screen and switched over to the dining area camera. She couldn't see much, but what she saw was telling. The fox stood there gesturing to the camera for her to come over. In the background was part of a banner that normally wasn't there. She could make out congrats on it from where it was in the camera view. Looks like she earned her party, though it could also be a trap. However, with only a couple hours before her shift ended, maybe they just wanted plenty of time to celebrate. Fine, she would bite, but she wasn't going to rush into it. Sonati got up from her chair and stretched before exiting the room and walking down the left hall. As she entered the main building hall, the fox turned toward her. Ah, now ye show caution after throwing it to the wind these past few nights. The mechanical foxes. Uh, I lost my place. The mechanical fox's voice and posture almost seemed to convey amusement. Though it must, though I must say, it does me heart good to know that even the bravest shut their doors before the greatest fox, will see fox to ever hoist the doors. Or maybe she just didn't want to catch anything. After all, those ports you have visited, I'd be worried too, the bunny fired back. Were they really going there? Ye be the rabbit, not I. Yep, they went there. The de-aged Hokage sighed to herself as she sat in the chair in front of a steaming bowl of ramen. Apparently, she wasn't the only one disappointed in their antics either, as the bear visibly brought his open hand to his face and shook his head. Fellas, that is not the kind of conversation to have in front of the little lady, he scolded. The two offenders didn't look at all repentant, but stayed silent all the time. All the same, now, little lady, we wish to congratulate you on a job well done. You have won this little game, so have a bowl on us, and relax for the rest of your shift. I know Fox has been dying to tell one of his tales, so I'll take it from here. So he'll take it from here. Thank you, Captain. The fox gave a bow to the bear before addressing Sonati. Now, lass, I think it only fair Did I tell someone as brave and gutsy as ye one of me grandest tales, one of danger and adventure, a tale of when I found the most cursed of treasures. Hey, the bunny interrupted. I thought you were planning to tell her of when you and I first met. I'd be doing just that. Hey! That's not the mood for the tale. The majority of the party, Tsunade couldn't help but smile a bit at the whole dynamic. Oh, the tale is exaggerated to the extreme. The characters over the top, constant interruptions to bicker and prod, all while the bear tried to keep some matter of order. It was nostalgic in a way. It brought a smile to her lips and a laugh to her heart. Watching it. It was hard to remember that this group of clowns was also a group of killer machines. After the tale wound down and the music took priority, Tsunade decided to do the same thing her apprentice had done to her. She challenged the fox to an arm wrestling. He was quick to agree. Why do you lasses always challenge this old fox? It had asked as it settled into position. Her only answer was to smile as they clasped the struggles as the struggle of the ages began. Tsunade Sakura's appearance wasn't real. It was a transformation. However, with her experience and control, she made it so close to reality that it was hard to tell the difference. One of the ways she accomplished this was by limiting the body on what it could do. Now, normally, she ran around as only a decade or so younger, so her reserves weren't really touched. However, as a genin, her strength and chakra were quite heavily limited. She didn't think this would be a problem, but not with her super strength technique. 2 minutes into the challenge, it proved to be a problem. She didn't have the leverage or the muscle capacity to overpower the animatronic. Like her apprentice before her, all she could do was struggle against the inevitable decline of her hand. She was not about to do that. She pumped more chakra in her arm. The descent halted, and there was a whirring sound from her opponent. As he added more pressure, the Sonian resisted and pushed. She felt something give as her hand ascended from certain defeat. It was a slow ascent, but progress was being made. She pushed herself. Chakra power versus machine. It was a titanic struggle until something once more gave, and she thumped the metal hand to the table. With a cheer, Snorri got up from her chair and beamed at her defeated opponent as she crossed her arms below her chest. Her smile was wide as she beamed at the fox and met his eye. Wait, hadn't he been taller? She blinked once. Oh, Lord! Then blinked again. She lifted her arms slightly to feel the weight on them. Oh, just like that, the jovial nature of her table mate was wiped away. A heavy miasma of killing intent flooded the area. Despite knowing she could probably beat it in a fight, she couldn't help but notice just how sharp those teeth appeared. Nor could she stop herself from remembering the fact that one of the animatronics had the strength to sever a human's frontal lobe while it was still in the skull, and the precision to make sure the victim survived this incident. Man, all she has to do is summon Katsune, I think? The slug, bro, and then fuck them up, bro. Cover them hoes in slime. Anyway. Okay. Just like the. Okay, wait. Alright, let me see. I lost my place. Anyway, surviving. As she stared into that one hate-filled eye, she couldn't help but compare the experience to when she had faced down Hanzo the salamander, a fight that she and the other Sani thought they could win, only to find out the futility of their struggle. The single eye of the machine before her closed. You best put ye mask back on, lass. Tsunade didn't hesitate to do so. When that one eye opened again, she was once more a child. Slowly, oh so slowly, the miasma cleared and the mood lifted once more. You did well, lass. You earned this. So we will let her trick slide. The fox leaned over the table menacingly. However, if ye or anyone like ye tries to do so again, it will be a very long walk down a very short pier. Understand? Tsunade was a well-trained and experienced ninja. She had fought in a war and destroyed just about anything in her way. or everything in her way. She could probably easily break this walking thing of metal and fur, and yet, as I stared down at her, she felt so very small, like the beginning she appeared to be. She nodded. I can't hear you, Les. Yes, sir, I understand. Good. The thing before her nodded, and jovial nature returned as it gestured with its hooked hand. In a toast to your victory. Not many have beaten my might, after all. Before before she could question anything, a large purple hand reached around her and placed a small bottle of sake on the table. Oh! While another handed her a small saucer. She almost screamed. She hadn't even noticed that the music had stopped playing. She gulped as she took the saucer and picked up the bottle. On the other side of the table, the four animatronics gathered with saucers in hand, much larger and empty saucers, but one was even set to rest on the fox's hook. It was an inspiring sight. She filled her saucer, and in response, the four metal machines raised theirs. To your victory, they called and mimicked the mime drinking. She followed suit. It was cheap brand sake, the kind you would drink quickly in order to get a good buzz going. The band returned to the stage and started playing its last set. As she let the music wash over her, she sipped slowly at her drink. As she collected her thoughts, her mind pieced itself back together as she went over the counter. Up to that point, it hadn't been all that exciting. Then it got very exciting. She started the plan. She took a deep swallow from the bottle. There really was some cheap stuff. She wasn't sure she would ever find a better drink. Like, that was kind of it. That's the end. That's the end, boys. All right. I was gonna use the same thumbnail, but I'm just gonna use. Uh, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna use the thumbnail, but add Tsunade in it, the younger version. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was it. I'll probably do some more. We'll see. We'll see.